Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Organic Matters brought to you by the Irish Organic Association. We are lucky to have Mr. Paul Holmbeck here today. Paul was Director of Organic Denmark for over 25 years and really spearheaded the movement and the increase in organics over there. He is now an advisor and helping to develop organic policy in various different countries and helped with the strategic document just being launched in the Netherlands as well. So a lot to learn. Paul, thank you very much for joining us.
Happy to be here.
I guess we'll dive right in. We'll look at Denmark. I mean, what was the main driver to change over there in terms of organic? Because it's known for being quite an intensive agricultural system.
Yeah, a lot of the motivations for from the political side and from agriculture side to be interested in organics is that it solved problems. We have serious problems with pollution of our drinking water, which we get from the underground. And we have nitrogen problems. We have, there were issues of increasing pesticides in foods, and farmers not earning enough money. And so since organics contributes to solving all of those issues, there's been more and more interest from agriculture to promote it as part of their efforts, and from politicians to use organics as part of the solution.
I guess, though, we in Ireland see there's barely kind of 2% of the land here is in organics, and we're kind of keen to learn how you guys change that. I mean, is there something that farmers can do? Was there kind of an inspirational guide that you gave farmers? Were there lots of farm walks? How did you change the mindset of farmers over there?
Well, farmers are interested in what's interesting and exciting to work with, where they feel, the value of what they do. They also follow what other farmers are interested in. So we did a lot of steps to interest farmers. One thing is direct policy support for farmers. So making certification free, subsidizing during the conversion period, a lot of investments in training. But we did a lot from the sector to bring farmers out onto organic farms, debunk some myths they had about that, it's going to look like hell, the whole thing, seeing well-run organic farms. And that helped to increase the respect for organic farmers. And that's really important in farm communities because we put a lot of focus on craftsmanship. This requires this is a knowledge-intensive form of production. You have to be a really good farmer to be an organic farmer. And that has gradually tipped, and that understanding has gone more and more in that direction, as organic farming also has been very innovative. Then we had a number of tools that were super useful. Conversion checks, where any farmer in Denmark can get one full day of advice based on, looking at the farm, the details of the farm. An advisor comes out and walks through the whole farm and looks at how could this farm look as an organic farm? Where are the challenges, being realistic about those, where are the opportunities? And that is also an opportunity to debunk some myths about what's happening in the market, what happens in the fields, what's available for the farmer of knowledge. So those have proved to be very important first steps for farmers. And a lot of times the whole family's involved. So, talking about what do you want to do with your farm? What do you want this farm to represent and to work for you? So, making it personal, making it interesting. We also did very active recruitment of well-known, respected farmers, even if they would just say they were considering going over to organic. That raised eyebrows and caused attention. And then we really tried to cooperate a lot with the conventional farm organizations. Not bashing conventional farming. I mean, I hardly ever said anything about conventional farming. Our goal was that, our members should be able to play cards with their neighbors and not just talk about how their organizations are talking about each other. So keeping the peace, keeping it interesting, keeping it motivating, and then, policy. And the last thing was getting companies involved. If their dairy says we're going more organic, we're interested in finding more organic farmers, obviously that's going to get the attention of farmers. So the whole supply chain really has a role and a responsibility to increase farmer interest. And then, of course, the fact that farmers were earning more. I mean, not in the beginning, but organic farmers in Denmark, not every single quarter and not every single production type, but basically they're earning more money, which is also an interesting and important factor.
I guess it's an important factor. I mean, I love the idea that it wasn't, organic versus conventional. It wasn't, you weren't trying to go up against anyone. You were just saying, look, if you want to go organic, we're open to talking about it. And I think opening up that conversation can be difficult. I remember listening to one farmer when he said he was going organic, this would have been 20 years ago, that it would have been easier to tell his farmer neighbors he was coming out as gay, which is funny, but also really negative.
That is so funny. And actually, I have a story because we don't put a lot of focus on young farmers and getting them, the ones that are, in their education, getting them on farms. And there was a very similar incident where younger farmers said, yeah, I'd rather come out of the closet as gay than as an organic farmer. And the organic farmer's response was, hey, why not both? So, yeah, there's a lot of
there are both out there, and that's fine now. And we live in a much more accepting world.
Yeah. Gotta break that down.
But I think that stigma is still there, unfortunately, for some Irish farmers. And is it that thing that you did have farm walks specifically for, say, young farmer organizations to try and help change that mentality?
Yeah, because they need farmers they can look up to. They need to see that this is a professional field that they're going into, which is promising and challenging and where there's respect. And that is what is attractive to young farmers, where they can actually be a part of shaping something new, which, organic farmers are more kind of in the center of their production. There's not as many shortcuts. So you have to be a very good manager. And I think the respect for that is important for young farmers.
Yeah. I guess in the context of the Netherlands, it's quite interesting because there's been lots of news about the derogation over there and the fact that it's going to be lost. And that's going to be quite a blow, and it's due to nitrogen pollution as well. I mean, has that been a deciding factor for some farmers in becoming organic, that they know that there are changes in the pipeline?
Yeah, the Netherlands and actually Denmark also looks a lot like this. Nitrogen has been a major issue, and the general policy environment is also very important for driving transition to organic. And this is a key factor. And one of the things that's really different in Denmark, absolutely in relation to the Netherlands, for example, is the degree to which we've used organic as a part of these, solving these bigger, tough problems. So in our water quality strategies, biodiversity strategies, green public procurement, export strategies, rural development strategies, organic has been, since the 90s, one of the pillars of development of those efforts within Denmark. And so we haven't needed politicians to say that organics is the only way, but we have needed them to put organics in as part of the solution. And in that way, that releases, new policy, new resources to develop organic production and promote conversion and market development. So it's important that general policy points in the direction. So every step that we've had with, like, we have pesticide fees in Denmark, that is trying to put the cost polluter pays principle in practice. I think we need more game changers like that. Lower VAT on organics, for example.
Yeah.
There could be fees on antibiotics and other things that we want to see less of. And we want prices to reflect environmental and health costs, and in that way level the playing field in the market. That would be an incredible game changer. I mean, if we cut the VAT in half in Denmark for organic products, organic products would be cheaper than conventional.
That would be very clever. I even think in terms of, say, the building requirement, say with organic housing, where farmers need to invest in new facilities for organic housing, if something could be done around the tax on that, I think that could help from a farmer level. But like you're saying, from a consumer level as well, the whole way along needs to be thought through.
And subsidies is another issue. Like right now, some policy proposals are being considered. We've done some steps in this direction where, moving subsidy to farming from really kind of a passive support for a particular area of land to supporting the actual actions that farmers are taking for climate, biodiversity, animal health. That would also shift, it's heliotropic, like sunflowers, they follow the sun. Well, farmers, what gets subsidized, you kind of get the agriculture you pay for. So, that would also shift farmers' focus and make organic economically more attractive.
I'm interested in what you did in terms of the public procurement side of things, because that's been something that a lot of emphasis has been put on, say, by the EU in terms of what member states can potentially do. But that's something that you did. You looked at public procurement and you really championed the use of organic food in public procurement.
Yeah, that's been a very important policy area, and it's a really good example of where you need both new policy and you need the sector to mobilize. And so on the policy side, the government walked the talk. I mean, if they want more organic farming, well, look at your own purchasing. And so they set a goal of 60% organic for all public kitchens. So military barracks, hospitals, schools, everything. And Copenhagen is actually at 90%. And then finance the education in the kitchens, because a lot of these kitchens have been heavily industrialized. They weren't really making food anymore. So we designed not just a shift to organic, but a shift to also reducing waste, being more plant-based meals, buying in season. So we actually showed that the premium price for the organic products could be paid for by reducing waste and buying in season and using less meat. But that requires education. So that was financed by the government. And then we developed this cuisine label for 30, 60, and 90% organic, so that kitchens could, when they'd reached a certain goal, they could make that visible. And it really became kind of a point of pride and a very useful documentation for the cities about how far they had gotten. And then in the sector, we did the training out in the kitchens. We brought the food service industry, which is incredibly conservative and was not very interested in organics, but their frontline salespeople were almost doing anti-marketing organics, saying, oh, we have it, it's more expensive, we don't have it all the time. Instead, we got them out on organic farms, got them motivated, and they became great salespeople for organics. And then we also organized in the supply chain to make sure that we had all the products that the public sector kitchens needed in the right volumes, in the right packaging. And so that when they sought those products, they got exactly what they needed and plenty of it. So that is, a success story of this kind of, using both push and pull. You got the policy that's pulling, from farmers, and then you got the push, organizing among farmers and food companies to push from production side.
Yeah. In terms then of, there are lots of targets out there for organics, and you're working on a European level now. How are you going to keep that momentum going? Do you think there is farmer interest, but also consumer demand to reach a target of doubling the organic area again by 2030?
Yeah, I mean, we need more of the same. We'll need consistent policy. I think we're going to need those game changers that I mentioned, shifting farm subsidies over towards more green practices from farmer side will encourage more conversion. We'll clearly need to continue to develop the market, because farmers have to be able to sell the organic products that they produce, and to a price that covers more than covers their costs. And then we need to continue to be innovating So continued investment in research and development, and in bringing new knowledge out to farmers so that organics continues to be more efficient, but also solving more problems, doing much better carbon drawdown, increasing biodiversity, and continuing to add value to organics.
You have been to Ireland. I know you did a presentation before at the RDS here. I don't know how familiar you are with the exact lay of the land in terms of organics in Ireland, but is there any major challenge or kind of priority action that you would see that needs to be taken here?
Well, I think besides developing, some kind of a total organic action plan that has both policies promoting production, innovation, and market development, I would say that there are some things within the sector, and this will require resources. This means the government and companies should invest, as they did in Organic Denmark. They should invest in the organic sector to build capacity to actually drive market development. What we did in Denmark in order was engage retailers, build partnerships with each individual retail actor, helping them expand their product assortments, place them much better in the stores, communicate much better the why of organics. That's all important to making sure they have success with organics, and then they want more. And then organics becomes more of a competitive element among retailers. That didn't seem to be a real strong competitive area, but it could be. And once it is, retailers will try to really do organics well, have the products available, and market them well to consumers. That's really key. And then consumer awareness. Consumers need to know more about the why of organics, what it does for nature, what it does for animal welfare, what it does for climate. Also, as we've seen, like with, when there's a greater focus on how do we draw more, carbon out of the atmosphere, how do we, increase carbon in the soil and biodiversity on farms. Organics has a lot of these solutions, and that can be communicated to consumers, and then it's also a reason to support it with policy.
Yeah. In terms of for organics European wide, who do you think the strongest country is going up to 2030? Who do you think is really going to thrive? Who should Ireland be looking towards?
Denmark, of course.
Oh, of course. If it was a football league, who should?
No, but there are countries that have a larger percentage of their of their farm area as organic than Denmark does. Austria, for example, Sweden, for example. I think Denmark is probably a good case in terms of the how of driving market development, because we do have the highest, market shares. We have, for a lot of basic products like milk and eggs and carrots and so on, we have 30 to 50% of the market, and some products are even being phased out conventional now because organic market shares are so high at 70-80%. So we're really interesting on policy and market development and kind of organizing the sector. I think Austria is really interesting also on market development. They're number 2 now. But also some very good policy. I think a lot of their area is very, very low intensity. So we do have more farming, I think, that looks like farming in Ireland. And very strong in dairy. So, that's another, reason that I think Denmark's probably interesting. But there's good policy all around and good goals being set. Germany set a goal of 30% organic. That is ambitious, and they're now developing policy for that. So there's a lot of policy development going on. I think the important thing is to work closely together with the sector to develop really strong organic policy, and then finance it and implement it.
And is that about educating the consumer? Yeah.
There, I think, there's some good examples. There's been some good campaigns in France. We've done some very good campaigns. Some Austria, there's a couple of older ones from Austria that I think have been fantastic. And so there's a lot of inspiration, but you always have to, work things to the right context, what's going to work in the given cultural context. So that can be very different. But there's a lot of inspiration out there for doing very effective campaigning. And also other things that we've used in Denmark, like social proof, we've used intensively. So each time we've had an increase in organic sales, we've actually beat the drum for that to bring focus on it, because when people see that more and more people are buying more organic, they actually become more curious about it themselves and tend to kind of go in some of the same direction.
Paul, thank you very much for all of that. That's really interesting. I know you have a website as well. If anyone's interested, they can check it out. They can find you online. But from all of us here at Organic Matters, thank you very much. If you want to listen to more organic podcasts, there's one every week. And if you want to find out more about organics, visit the Irish Organic Association at www.irishodganicassociation.ie. But until next week, thank you very much for tuning in.